It was just past midnight when Chuck Norris stepped on a flight 247 bound for New York. The cabin smelled faintly of leather, jet fuel, and expensive cologne, typical of a red-eye, first-class section loaded with Wall Street types and L.A. execs trying to catch sleep in a $1,000 seat. Chuck moved quietly, unnoticed at first. His presence was never loud. It radiated calm, like a storm that hadn't decided if it would strike or pass. He wore a simple denim shirt, slightly faded, and jeans to match. His boots were scuffed but cared for, and around his neck, beneath the collar, was a worn leather cord holding a wooden pendant. It wasn't fancy, wasn't flashy, but it was meaningful. Chuck reached seat 1A, the front corner by the window. He gave a courteous nod to the flight attendant standing nearby, Amanda. Early 30s, sharp eyes, hair tied back, so tight it gave her cheekbones an edge. Amanda gave him a glance that lingered a beat too long. She didn't recognize him yet, but she did notice his outfit. She gave the kind of smile that felt more like a formality than a welcome. "Good evening, sir," she said. "Can I help you store anything before takeoff?" Chuck shook his head, voice low and polite. "No, thank you. I travel light." He settled in, buckled up, and pulled a small book from his bag. It was an old copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, its corners rounded from years of travel. He wasn't a man who scrolled aimlessly on a phone. He read, reflected, observed. As passengers filed in, Amanda continued her rounds, offering champagne, adjusting bags, and reminding folks not to block the aisle. When she returned to Chuck's row, she paused. He had leaned back, exposing just a sliver of the pendant beneath his collar. Her eyes locked onto it, and something shifted in her face. Curiosity soured into judgment. She approached. "Sir," she began, professional tone tightening. "We ask that passengers in first class adhere to a certain dress standard. Jewelry like that, well, it's a bit casual, wouldn't you agree?" Chuck looked up, brows lifted slightly. "Didn't realize there was a jewelry code," he said, calm as still water. "Well, it's not official," Amanda said quickly, "but we do try to maintain a certain aesthetic. That kind of necklace might be fine in Coach, but here it's a little out of place." He paused. "This necklace was given to me by an elder of the Shure tribe. It's not just decoration. It's a gift of protection." Amanda exhaled a light laugh, the kind that wasn't meant to be heard, but clearly was. "Well, sir, I'm sure it means a lot to you. Still, rules are rules. Or at least, standards are standards." The comment lingered in the air like smoke. Chuck sat forward slightly, not aggressive, never aggressive, but alert. "Are you saying I can't wear this?" Amanda's face twitched. She wasn't expecting pushback. "I'm saying that if you want to remain seated in first class, I would appreciate if you removed or tucked it away." A businessman 2 rows behind stopped fiddling with his laptop. A woman near the aisle leaned just enough to hear. Chuck's voice dropped, not in volume, but in weight. "Let me get this straight. You're asking me to remove a necklace given to me by a tribe elder, something I've worn on every mission, every flight for the past 20 years, because it doesn't match your idea of first-class fashion?" Amanda crossed her arms. "I'm not asking, mister." She trailed off, realizing she didn't know who he was. "Norris," he said simply. "Chuck Norris." A beat. Her jaw twitched, but her pride kicked in harder than her awareness. "Well, Mr. Norris," she said, forcing composure, "if you won't comply, I may have to notify the flight's supervisor." "You go ahead," Chuck said, leaning back again. "But I'm not removing it." She stood there for a second, uncertain. She was used to compliance, not resistance. And certainly not from someone who could snap a coconut open with one hand. Not that she knew that, yet. As she turned to leave, she muttered under her breath, "Figures they let anyone up here these days." A gasp came from the couple in 2A. Chuck heard it. Everyone near enough heard it. Amanda didn't mean to say it so loud, but it came out, dripping with disdain. She kept walking toward the galley, heat rising to her face. Chuck sat motionless, staring out the window now, hands resting on his book. Minutes passed. Another attendant, younger, friendlier, stopped by, offering a fresh coffee. She looked nervous, whispered, "Just wanted to say big fan." Chuck nodded, cracked a half smile. Appreciated. Amanda reappeared, not alone. With her was Diane, the flight supervisor, mid-40s, polished, confident. But her expression shifted the moment she laid eyes on Chuck. Her posture straightened, her lips parted in recognition. She whispered to Amanda, "That's Chuck Norris." Amanda froze. "Wait, what? That Chuck Norris?" "Yes," Diane hissed. "And you gave him grief?" Amanda blinked, panic slowly dawning like sunlight through storm clouds. I didn't realize." Diane didn't wait for excuses. She stepped forward. "Mr. Norris, I want to personally apologize for any misunderstanding. There's absolutely no issue with your necklace or anything else. Please don't hesitate to let us know if you need anything." Chuck gave her a long look, then returned to his book. Amanda stood awkwardly at Diane's side. She cleared her throat, trying to recover. "I apologize if I came off rude. I didn't mean to disrespect." Chuck held up a finger, not in anger, but in finality. "Next time," he said, "don't judge people by what's around their neck. Sometimes it carries more than you'll ever understand." Amanda swallowed. The words didn't scold, they sank. He looked back down, and the moment ended. The rest of the flight was quiet. Amanda avoided 1A entirely. Diane checked in twice, overcompensating with warmth. The pendant remained visible. No one said another word about it. What Amanda didn't know, yet, was that someone had captured the interaction. A passenger in 1C had been recording when Amanda made her demand, and again when she muttered the insult. The video would be online by the time they landed, and within 12 hours, it would be viral. But Amanda hadn't learned that lesson yet. When Flight 247 touched down at JFK the next morning, most of the passengers disembarked with groggy eyes and stiff backs. Some had meetings ahead of them. Others had hotel rooms waiting. Chuck Norris, as usual, traveled without an entourage. He grabbed his small duffel, gave a respectful nod to the younger attendant who had offered him coffee, and strode off the plane without another glance at Amanda. Amanda, however, didn't move quite so easily. She lingered in the galley, pretending to be organizing cups, but mostly trying not to think about the pit growing in her stomach. She'd Googled Chuck Norris the moment Diane pulled her aside, and it had hit her like a gut punch. There he was, martial artist, actor, veteran, humanitarian, Medal of Valor recipient. Stories, memes, entire books of exaggerated legends, most of them ridiculous, but somehow still making him seem larger than life. It wasn't just that she'd been rude, it was that she disrespected him. By the time Amanda made it to the crew lounge to debrief and clock out, her phone was already vibrating more than usual. At first, it was a message from a coworker on the same flight. "Girl, check Twitter. You're trending." Amanda blinked. "Twitter? Why?" She pulled out her phone and opened the app. Her heart rate ticked up immediately. The first post she saw had already hit over 200,000 views. At business class, bro. Flight attendant just tried to shame Chuck Norris for wearing a necklace in first class. She told him it was too casual for the premium cabin. He handled it like a boss. Didn't say a word. Just stared her down and went back to reading Marcus Aurelius. Icon. Hashtag Chuck Norris. Hashtag respect the legend. Then came the video. 2 minutes. Not high quality, but clear enough. You could hear Amanda's voice. Her tone. The muttered insult. The comments section was brutal. Imagine telling Chuck Norris he's not first class enough. LMAO. This is why customer service has trust issues. Some of y'all power trip way too hard. The necklace probably has more honor in it than her whole attitude. Chuck Norris should roundhouse kick Delta's HR department if they don't handle this. He quoted Marcus Aurelius afterward. Bro is literally a philosopher warrior. Amanda scrolled faster, panic rising. Mentions of her name were multiplying. Someone had identified her from her name badge in a video. It had gone from a vague flight attendant to Amanda Carrington, Delta Airlines. She gasped. She opened her email. Internal HR already had a message flagged urgent in her inbox. Subject: urgent. Passenger interaction on Flight 247. Immediate meeting required. Her mouth went dry. She clicked the message. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. No time to prepare. No guidance. Just report to Corporate Relations Conference Room 3C. She stared at the screen in disbelief. What had started as a petty complaint over a necklace had now exploded into a viral PR crisis. By 9:15 a.m., Amanda was sitting across from a panel of 3 suits. One from HR, one from Public Affairs, and one with the sort of cold, quiet demeanor that said Legal Department. They played the video back without commentary. When it finished, no one spoke for a moment. Then HR cleared her throat. "Amanda, do you recall this incident?" "Yes," Amanda said, trying to stay calm. "I didn't realize who he was at the time. We're not concerned with celebrity recognition." The Public Affairs rep cut in. "We're concerned with how you treated a passenger, particularly a decorated veteran, and the optics of suggesting someone doesn't belong in first class based on their appearance." "It wasn't about that," Amanda protested. "It was just the necklace looked unprofessional. I didn't mean it as an insult." "You told him this cabin wasn't a cowboy rodeo," the legal rep said flatly. "I was trying to keep things classy." "Then you muttered an insult audible to other passengers." "That's the part we cannot defend," HR said. "We've had over 80,000 complaints submitted to our official inbox in less than 12 hours. Amanda froze. 80,000? The Public Affairs rep continued. "And now Mr. Norris is being hounded by media outlets, all because of how we treated him on one of our flights. He hasn't made a statement. He hasn't commented. But that silence speaks volumes." Amanda swallowed. "I was just doing my job." "No," HR said, voice clipped. "You let your personal bias override judgment. That necklace you mocked? It turns out he's spoken about it before. It was given to him during humanitarian aid work in the Amazon. It's deeply spiritual. He wore it when he visited wounded soldiers in Iraq." Amanda felt like her chair was turning to ice beneath her. Public Affairs leaned forward. "We're trying to decide whether this ends in a formal apology and suspension or full termination. But this isn't fair," Amanda cried. "Nobody ever warned me not to say that kind of thing. I was trying to maintain standards." "There's a difference between standards and prejudice," said the legal rep. "And unfortunately for you, it was recorded. And it was Chuck Norris." Amanda left the building 2 hours later, suspended indefinitely pending investigation. As she walked out of the Delta building, she noticed someone filming her from behind a car window. A teenage kid in sunglasses. "Yo," he shouted. "Is that the flight attendant who dissed Chuck Norris? Damn, she really lives to regret it." She kept walking. Her face burned hotter than jet fuel. Meanwhile, Chuck Norris sat in a quiet Brooklyn cafe, sipping green tea. He had no social media. He didn't need it. But his agent had already called him that morning. "Chuck, you're trending." "Again?" He chuckled. "What for this time?" "Apparently you stared down a flight attendant who insulted you and quoted philosophy. Whole thing's on video." "I just told her not to judge people by what's around their neck," Chuck said. "It wasn't personal." "Well, the internet made it personal. She's getting eaten alive online." Chuck frowned. "That's not what I wanted. People need a reminder of respect now and then." "You gave one without lifting a finger." Chuck nodded slowly, then looked down at the necklace. He gently touched the wood pendant between his fingers. "Still works," he muttered. By that night, news outlets were running headlines. "Flight attendant learns the hard way. Don't mess with Chuck Norris." "The necklace that silenced first class." "Delta faces backlash after disrespecting a legend." And the top comment under nearly every post? "She judged a man by his necklace." The necklace had more honor than her words. Amanda stayed offline for days. When she finally peeked at her email again, a single subject line stood out from Chuck Norris's official rep. "We don't want an apology. We want respect." The lesson had landed, and it wouldn't fade anytime soon. 2 weeks had passed since the incident on Flight 247. The internet firestorm had slowly dimmed, moving on to the next outrage. The memes had stopped. The Twitter threads had dried up. But Amanda Carrington's life hadn't gone back to normal. The suspension held. Her airline ID badge now sat useless on her nightstand, and every time her phone buzzed, she jumped. She deleted all her social media accounts after seeing one too many edited videos of her mid-sentence with devil horns added. The worst part wasn't the shame or even the fact that her career might be over. It was the realization that she hadn't just insulted a famous man. She'd insulted a human being who carried something meaningful, and she'd done it while hiding behind a polished uniform and a misplaced sense of superiority. She couldn't sleep right, couldn't focus. She tried reaching out to corporate to offer a formal apology, but they told her the matter was under review and that any outreach would be handled through public relations, which meant it was out of her hands. So she took to walking. In the mornings, she'd stroll through her Brooklyn neighborhood with a coffee, try to sort through the noise in her head. Some days, she'd stop at the bookstore on the corner, not to buy anything, but to sit in the philosophy section and read things she'd never cared about before. Books by Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. She read slowly, trying to understand why Chuck Norris had chosen to quote a Roman emperor after being insulted. There was something poetic about that, something unervingly calm. One passage stuck with her. You always own the option of having no opinion. It was like a thunderclap in her chest. She had an opinion about everything that day on the flight, his necklace, his look, his presence. But none of it had been necessary. She could have just done her job, could have served him a drink and moved on. And yet she hadn't. 3 weeks later, Amanda got an unexpected phone call. "Is this Amanda Carrington?" asked a voice on the line. "Yes. This is Greg with the Patriot Veterans Honor Foundation. We're organizing a fundraiser and have partnered with Delta as a sponsor. Chuck Norris will be attending." Your name came up. Amanda's breath caught. Why would I be involved in something like that? "Well," Greg said carefully, "Mr. Norris is aware of the attention the incident received. He specifically asked that you be given the opportunity to attend the event on one condition." Amanda sat down. "What's the condition?" "He wants you to listen. That's it. Just listen." She blinked. "You're serious?" "As a heart attack." She didn't answer immediately, but something in her shifted. "Okay, I'll be there." The event was held in a massive ballroom at a hotel overlooking the East River. Veterans in decorated uniforms lined the walls. American flags flanked the stage. The room buzzed with warmth, not pomp. There was laughter, clinking glasses, and an unmistakable sense of pride hanging in the air. Amanda kept to the back, wearing a simple black dress and no jewelry. She didn't know what she expected, maybe to sit quietly, maybe to be ignored, but her name tag felt like a spotlight. Then she heard his voice. Chuck Norris was standing near the side of the room, laughing with a group of veterans. He looked the same, unbothered, calm, at home in any room, surrounded by people of substance. One of the event organizers approached her. "He's expecting you," he said, then led her forward. Chuck turned as she approached. Their eyes met. "Mr. Norris," she said softly, "thank you for..." He held up a hand, not to silence, but to slow. "Before you apologize," he said, "I want to tell you a story." Amanda blinked. Chuck gestured for her to sit beside him on an empty bench near the wall. She sat. "This necklace," he said, holding up the wooden pendant, "was given to me by a man named Tepanenchik, deep in the Peruvian jungle. I was working with a humanitarian team, bringing medicine to isolated villages. We got caught in a flash flood. Would have been swept away if not for him. He pulled me out of the water, cracked my ribs doing CPR, then laughed when I came to." Amanda watched his hands. Steady, weathered. He didn't speak English. I didn't speak Quechua, but he gave me this necklace, so it would keep me grounded. He tapped my chest and said, "You walk with others, but never forget the earth beneath your feet." Chuck looked at her. "I've wore it ever since. Not because it looks good, but because it reminds me who I am. Every time I think I've got the world figured out, this necklace reminds me I still have things to learn." Amanda's throat tightened. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I know you didn't," he said gently. "That's the problem with judgment. It usually comes before understanding." She nodded. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. And reading. You quoted Marcus Aurelius. I started reading his stuff. That line about not needing an opinion hit me hard." Chuck smiled. "That's the one that got me too." Amanda looked him in the eyes. "I judged you. I saw a necklace and a denim shirt and thought I knew everything. But I didn't know anything. And I'm sorry." Chuck didn't respond immediately. He simply reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small card, an invitation. He handed it to her. "What's this?" "We're doing a speaking event next month. Veterans and civilians. Topic is humility and service. I want you to speak. Amanda recoiled. Me? No. I'm the cautionary tale. Exactly, he said. We don't need perfect people up there. We need people who've learned something. You think those guys in uniform never made mistakes? What matters is owning them. She stared at the invitation. Her fingers shook. I don't know if I can. You already did the hardest part, Chuck said. You listened. The event took place 6 weeks later in a modest auditorium in Atlanta. Amanda stood at the podium, hands trembling, looking out at an audience of veterans, airline workers, and people from every walk of life. Chuck sat in the front row, arms crossed, nodding as she spoke. I thought I knew what professionalism was, she said. I thought I knew what respect looked like. I thought first class meant polished shoes and press suits. But I forgot what it really means to serve. To see people. Not roles. Not appearances. People. She paused, then glanced down at her own neck. There was no necklace, but in her jacket pocket, tucked carefully beside her notes, was a small wooden pendant. I was humbled by someone who had every right to be angry, and instead chose to teach. She looked at Chuck. He gave her a slight nod. And I'll carry that lesson longer than I ever wore a uniform. The audience applauded, not loud, but real. Amanda stepped back, heart pounding. Chuck approached her after the event. You walked through the fire, he said. Now keep walking. Amanda smiled. Thanks to you. No, he said. Thanks to you for listening. They shook hands. Nothing more needed to be said. And this time, nobody judged the necklace.